Well, nice, nice. You have one of the best mustaches I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely.
I've felt this way far before this show. I just don't know if I've ever actually vocalized it to you.
Well, thank you very much. It really once you start it just kind of grows on you, and the trick is don't ever cut it. Just don't cut it. Just brush it to the side, wax it up, you're good to go.
So, to give you a little introduction on Jeremy, he and I go way back to restaurant days, and then to now I buy things from him. And when I say things, he slings me supplies for the food truck.
Nice.
So I need to make sure that we emphasize that he does deal equipment to me as well as small goods and things like that. And I really liked his transition from the restaurant world into restaurant equipment sales. I don't know if it's equipment sales or if it's everything. I just know give your company a lot of money and it goes to you. Um, but we can dive into this a little later, but there's a big, at least BC, we'll use the term BC, of getting into something that helps restaurants out from restaurant management. Because honestly, unless you own it or you're not in it, you're working yourself to the bone a little bit.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do work for Restaurant Equipment Supply Company. Uh, the vast majority of our business is what we in the industry call heavy equipment. So that's stuff that you're not throwing out at the end of the shift, like grills and fryers and that kind of stuff. So obviously through this process with coronavirus COVID-19, it's had a drastic and strictly detrimental effect on our business because most of our clients have closed down. So just like every restaurant operator, food truck operator, and anybody in food service right now, we're just trying to adapt, trying to pivot as much as we can, and doing everything we can to manage our cash flow to try to make sure that we come out the other side of this, because this does have an end horizon, to make sure that we come out on the other side of it, still a healthy company, able to serve the needs of folks like Paul and folks like that around the country, that want to get back to work, that want to get back to their calling, which is taking care of people, showing hospitality, and giving people great food and a comfortable place to do it.
On our end, I'm probably going to buy a cooler from you next week. So
Awesome.
I need a cooler.
Well, that's two wins for the podcast already.
I mean,
the neck shaving and a cooler.
as I've already spoken.
Oh no. Did we lose him? Paul, are you there?
He's surprisingly still.
Yeah. I
That's a wonderful place to pause.
Yeah.
Right on that expression.
I don't know where he was going with that either, and I do want to know more about what you all do. So I guess we'll just wait for him to come back for a second. By the way, I know this is all in the live stream, so letting people behind the curtain a little bit. Do you have any headphones by chance?
I do.
I think I'm hearing myself bouncing back a little bit. So
Gotcha. All right, bear with me a second. Those are in short supply because I
okay.
have two teenage daughters, so they routinely steal them. Give me just a second.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's just me. It's just Asher with 8 a.m. coffee. Let's see if we can get everybody back on here. Mr. Paul Moody, Mr. Jeremy Garcia. I like taking a peek around the living space back there, though. It's pretty cool. I want to know what that picture is because the cameras
Hey,
on
Hey.
I don't know. All of a sudden, my computer just did not have Wi-Fi, which is really funny because now it's still not on Wi-Fi.
What?
However, I, I'm on my phone right now, So, did you kick us off of live?
No, should I? I just kept talking about Jeremy's living room.
Oh, that's fine. All right, okay. So, what I was trying to say is I didn't want to turn into a restaurant, uh, you know, discussion. However,
I do want you to know,
efficiency.
though, like, I know some people might feel like that's a little mundane, or I don't know the word for it, but I do find it fascinating just because I know that that
Okay.
world's there and nobody talks about it. So, I mean, it's kind of cool.
So currently in the food truck we have I call them deli coolers. I think they're more referred to as sandwich cooler. But we have one that will fit let's see, 4 6 pans. It's also one that they don't really make anymore, so it's really difficult to find parts for. Jeremy knows this because I send him on like hour quests
Hmm.
for like seals and bars and to put the 6 pans in and things like that. And I spend like a grand total of like $6 on each of them,
Ah,
and it's really fun to waste his time for very little sales. Not true, but that is really what happens. But when I was in a showroom the other day and I found one which is double the size, because on our tall cooler we only actually use about half of that cooler. And we'd be able to just be more efficient. Everything would be on top, so that way we could work. And then they have dividers that go into the deli or the sandwich cooler, so that we can actually leave the chicken on top and the ground beef, the beef that we use for the burgers or the loco moco and things like that. And it just makes us faster, because when you're looking at a food truck operation, it's actually not. So what happens? Sorry, sidetrack. What happens is chefs work in restaurants and they're like, ooh, I want to own my own thing. So they open a food truck and they still think it's a full service restaurant where they have 18 to 20 minutes to put out food. And the truth of the matter is if you look at it from a business acumen platform, then you have to think of yourself as just high end fast food. Not saying that our quality is superb.
right,
It's
right.
excellent.
Even better than
And we
Chick-fil-A.
according to some people, yes. And but you have to be able to get people in and out. You have to, turn guests, might be a better way of saying it, but in order to do that, you have to be as efficient as possible while still running safely. So if you're sitting there and opening a refrigerator all the time versus just grabbing and throwing it into the fryer, or on the grill or on the griddle or something like that, that's where this corona thing, what we've done is kind of taken a look at how we're doing everything
Hmm.
and gone, hey, how can we be better when we reopen? Because that is important. Now, Jeremy, my friend, has been very vocal on the social about needing to shut down. I will just be flat out about it. We did take that approach. We yeah, Now there's a very big possibility that we are going to reopen in some way, shape, or form past the we have self quarantine for 2 weeks, even though we don't have anything, everybody's fine that we know of. And I think I've said this several times, but that way we can open back up and be completely contactless this way. And now we know we're 14 days past and all of those other things. I've never had a problem with anybody operating. I've had an issue with people operating safely. And if you just don't know, you don't know. But Ashley and I got into this discussion the other day: is how do you know? Like, if you're going to the grocery store, if you're going to anywhere, like, you could be affected by this and not know it. The whole thing of April 30 is going to hurt some businesses, and his as well as some other ones. We don't know, if they shut the doors, when are they going to reopen, kind of thing. And I've said this repeatedly as well. The thing I do love about his company is it is a local, quote unquote, company, even though it is a national brand. You can go into their showroom as a non-restaurant employee, and I suggest this all the time, especially when I teach cooking classes at a very high-end retail cooking supply place. they're like, where should we get this? And I'm like, well, you could spend $80 on it here, or you can go get it for $10 down the road. And it doesn't have a label on it, but it works much better, and it's made of better quality, materials. So like you can go and buy restaurant tongs, like the really, like I know that sounds really simple, but like tongs and they just work. There's no like gravity to like close them and all that. They're just normal tongs, and I think they're like $8, $8.76 plus tax. It'd be really bad that I know that to a penny. Where you can get a more expensive, prettier one for about $45, and I'm like, what? Nobody's watching. Like, first of all, nobody's watching you do this, and secondly, trust me, people watch my cooking videos, and I know what to do with. Especially when you just sear steaks, and Jeremy Garcia is questioned for what he's saying verbally at the house. All right, so let's get back into. Let's shift from restaurant efficiency, which you think is very interesting, and I find that very interesting.
Didn't say very interesting, just interesting.
So one of my favorite stories about Jeremy Garcia is how I met him and the fact he was living in a hotel. Now, it was for work. I need this to be very clear. But yes. Let's go back to the shroom days, brother. Let's go back.
Tell us about it.
Oh wow. So when you say the shroom, I'm just going to give everybody a little bit of background. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
So I worked for Mellow Mushroom Pizza Bakers for many years, for about 15 years. And right before I met Paul, I had moved on a whim to Atlanta, Georgia from Auburn, Alabama. At the time, I had just started dating my now wife. This was back in 1999, and she was just graduating from Auburn. And we said, hey, you're leaving in a couple months. Where is this going to go? And our philosophy was, just take it as it goes. So the day came where she said, hey, I got a job. I'm moving to Atlanta. This has been fun. See you later. And basically, I reached out without her knowledge to Mellow Mushroom Corporate because I had worked for Mellow Mushroom in Auburn, Alabama. I said, hey, you guys got any jobs for me in Atlanta? And they said, yeah, actually, we've got a perfect store for you. So I drove over without her knowledge, interviewed, got the job, and ended up coming back home that night, kind of reconnecting with her as she had gotten her apartment situated. And I said, hey, what do you think about me moving in with you? I just got a job in Atlanta too. So it was a little wild, not the normal course, but it ended up working out. So I worked for that owner for quite some time. That was right in Midtown Atlanta, right across the street from Piedmont Park, in the heart of Atlanta. And after about 8 months of running 100-hour weeks, no days off, I burned to a crisp. It was just too much.
Is that a pizza joke?
There you go. I can't help it. I'm a dad now, so the dad jokes just a river.
Nailed it.
But, I had just interviewed with a new ownership group, and the irony being that they had hired one of the employees that I worked with in Atlanta, and it had not gone well, I should say. Let's just leave it at that. They had hired her in as a manager, and it did not work out well with them. And so when I came knocking, saying, hey, I'd like a job with you guys, they said, well, hold on. Do you know this person? And of course, I didn't know the background. So I said, yeah, absolutely. Well, what is our guarantee that we're not going to get the same results from you as we got from your coworker?
Right.
So they said, well, we'll tell you what, we'll give you a trial. So why don't you drive up to Knoxville, Tennessee, we'll put you up in a hotel for a couple weeks, and we'll see what you got. We got a new store. We just opened up. We need somebody to go up there and train folks on how to make amazing pizzas. And we'll give you a shot, kid. After 2 weeks, there's no commitment. we'll just wash our hands and walk away, or we won't, and we'll keep you.
Yeah.
So that's when I met Paul. Walked in the door. He was a manager at the time at Mellow Mushroom. They just hired their staff. So went through, taught everybody, my personal methods to making a pizza. Obviously, there's a lot of different ones. But by the end of the second day, I had been given the job and 2 raises and was committed. So
dang, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, you make a good pizza, you tend to win people over pretty easily.
Didn't Michael Scott say? Well, Paul wouldn't know what Michael Scott said, but the great equalizer or something like that. Everybody loves pizza.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's how Paul and I got together. We started working together in that scenario. Then after about 2.5 weeks, they pulled the plug and said, "Okay, we're done with you here. Head on back to Atlanta." And I worked at a few of their stores down there until my wife and I ended up settling down and getting married. We started looking at housing prices inside of the perimeter and schools and everything. And she said, "Get me out of Atlanta. We're not doing kids here." And I was like, "Okay." And so I moved back here permanently in 2002 to open up the Mellow Mushroom on Cumberland Avenue at the UT campus.
Side note,
no, we'll listen to
me. It's such a cliffhanger.
I was going to say cliffhanger every time. I was going to say...
I was cutting in and out. I didn't hear whatever. Did you hear that I said I was the worst manager they ever had?
No, did not hear that.
I was the absolute worst one they ever had. By the realms of, I did not last the longest. It was my secondary job, not my primary job. And my primary job was working at this place called Blackberry Farms. And I was just doing it for extra money. And I thought that I was the fine dining chef of the pizza world. And basically stood in a corner, clicked my heels on a wall, and yelled at people all day long. That's it. Probably my favorite story about working there is about actually Keith James Anders, best friend for a long time.
Love that guy.
So he was habitually late. And when I say habitually late, I believe he's still late for a shift he had in 2000 currently. But he was my best friend, and I let him get away with murder. I yelled at everyone there except him. Like, he was like, all right, whatever. But he came in late one day, and there were people that kept saying, "Oh, you let him get away with everything." And I was like, not today. And I pulled him back into the office and started screaming at him. And he was like, "Dude, what's up?" And I'm like, "Look, just go with it. I have to act like you're mad. I'm mad at you." Like, just go with it. He comes out and people are like, "Is he okay?" And he's like, "He told me he didn't care that he was my friend and that he'd fire me and all that." And the thing is I had fired multiple people before this. This is not like I fired a girl that worked the front counter because I told her she folded boxes really well and that the Gap was hiring and that's where she probably needed to go. Like, it was definitely. And then she brought her dad in because she was like 16 and I didn't know it, right? And her dad was like, "I want to talk to you about this." And I'm like, "Well, I can't really share employee files with you." And he's like, "Well, she's a minor." And I was like, "Oh, I thought that was illegal." So, I thought it was legal that I had to show him. So I showed him her like 10 write-ups in like 4 weeks. And he was like, "I get it. Maybe she does need to go to the Gap." Yeah. And I shockingly see her around now. And really? What's crazy is these kids that were like 16 at the time are now like 32. And I'm like, y'all have kids. There's one girl that worked there. She got pregnant in high school. And her kid graduated high school last year. I was like, what? I catered her wedding like 4 years ago. So.
It's like seeing the sign at Kroger or a grocery store where it's like if you were born after this date, like you're
Yeah.
allowed to buy cigarettes and things like that.
And like it's so weird going in there. It's like the first time I ever had like a high gravity beer was there. Um, Golden tea. I remember Barry Sanders came and ate at the
Yes.
restaurant, and we
Yes.
had a bartender from Detroit, and he was like, "I don't care, fire me." It was a Friday night. It was packed out. Everybody was there, and he was like, "I don't care." I told a guy I'd give him. When I say I was the worst restaurant manager ever, like a guy complained about his pizza after he ate all of it except for one piece because he found his own hair underneath the pizza. So I was like, I'll give you an eighth of it back. Like, I mean, I'm more than happy. I had a guy that didn't tip on an autograt. Well, he was like, he was mad that he got autogratted and everything. And I'm at the computer trying to work it and get it all back. And he said something to the tune of, oh, I can't remember what it was, but I found it and it was like $6, but it was going to take me 20 minutes to do the computer. So I just pulled $6 out of my pocket and handed it to him. He started walking out the door and I was in the middle of like the dining room yelled, "So you just weren't going to tip him anyways?" Like, I mean, like I was the worst. And that was a guy named Michael who his other job was to sell Christmas trees. Like, but then you get really cool stories out of that place, like Justin, who owns Status Stereograph, right?
Yes.
And he does posters for like Averitt Brothers, The Fish, Grateful Dead, like all these big time artists.
I'm sorry,
He
the
did.
fish.
I don't know. Just whatever. Listen, they all loved it. I was like, whatever.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? Um, I was also the only person that ever I was the one that always got the mandatory random drug test for insurance because I'm pretty sure I was the only one not doing anything there. But yeah, like Patrick, who I love Patrick. He's one of my friends on Facebook, so I hope he's here. He's watching this. Craziest dude ever. Pulled more practical jokes on me specifically than anyone. Speaking of which, today is April 1st, April Fool's Day. No one is participating.
Yeah, I don't. How could you? You know.
Someone already got me this morning. Believe it or not, inadvertently, it was collateral damage from my wife. She woke me up this morning. She said, "Hey, you've got that podcast thing. You better get up and put some pants on. Oh, and by the way, Knox County schools have closed through the end of the year." And I was like, "Oh, wow, blowing my mind. Well, that's big news, right?" And so I go in and I shave. I get all cleaned up, or as reasonable facsimile of cleaned up.
Yeah, yeah.
And I come back in and she said, "Hey, don't mention anything about Knox County schools to the guys on the podcast. It's an April Fool's joke." I was like, "Oh."
Well, I think they will be closed. So
I think that's going to be the ultimate joke is that they do get shut down.
Like through
Yeah.
the end of the year.
Yeah.
dude,
Man,
like
that's
so
crazy.
Kyle Landis, he's a church planter with Fellowship, great friend of mine. I think it was last. Yeah, it was last year. Was it last year when he ran for Congress? He made this whole video about running for Congress and like PowerPoint and giving like and he had like 15,000 views on this video and like
Jeez.
people like ready to buy shirts and all this. And he finally had to come out in the middle of the day and go, "Hey guys, April Fool's Day joke. Like, I'm not running for Congress."
Was it on
But
April
I was like,
1st?
"Yeah, man, I love your platform. Boom, I'll vote for you." Like, right? And then the year before that, when they said that there was going to be a secondary Grand Canyon because of like the largest sinkhole ever in the Smoky Mountains.
That's amazing.
I was legitimately on real estate websites trying to figure out how to buy property at the right place at the right price so that we could have views of this Grand Canyon. And thank God my wife is not as gullible as I am, because she was like, "All right." She just let me talk for like all day. And then she was like, "You realize we're not buying anything, right?" Like, because I finally was like, "It's an April Fool's Day joke," and she's like, "I know, like, you're the only one that actually bought this." So, what are you doing? Any trickery today over there, Asher?
No, I was actually going to ask you all about it. I mean, I don't know what I would do. My wife's writing her dissertation. I feel like it's a bad time to play pranks. I have two dogs that I could joke around with, but I mean, who are they going to tell? It's not going to be a good story for later, you know.
Speaking of which, how are the dogs?
The dogs are just wonderful, just
Okay,
wonderful. Yeah. And why don't we do our 841 TikTok update for Paul Moody? Jeremy, are you on TikTok?
By the way,
I do have an account just to amuse my daughters,
Nice.
but I'm not on it very often. But my 11-year-old loves the fact that I have one. She's like, "Mom, Dad has a TikTok." It just blows her mind. I was like, "Well, all right."
let's see.
I'm trying to get Paul to do a dance on TikTok. It doesn't matter which one. See, everyone's endorsing this, Paul. You have to do this.
I know, I realize. Currently, now, really weird. I gained 56 followers last night, but the count only went up to 23,338 as of today. So I believe that I lost some last night as well.
Oh, gotcha. I guess that does happen. I just want everyone to know that we're not. Well, maybe you are, Paul. You tell me. This is not really a boastful thing about TikTok. It's more of how crazy is it that someone like this person right here has a TikTok with 23,000 followers?
It's the dumbest thing ever. However, we did go to our viral video, and it jumped up like 600,000 views in the last week.
That's not even real.
Wow.
Yesterday we had 170.3 thousand views across all of our videos. Let's see. The one that's gone up the most is the viral video of the Jungle Cruise, and another one of the Jungle Cruise. Basically, I'm making a lot of views off of this one girl on Jungle Cruise.
It's really her
and then
TikTok,
the one of
Ashley
taking pictures, and then the one of me making the podcast. Like, it's got analytics and followers and all that. Like, right now our views are the lowest. Like, the most we have 3.1 thousand followers online currently, and our highest is at 8 p.m. when they're 8.2 thousand active at that moment. So
great.
Yeah, like, it's the only, like, all my other platforms I have like 500 people.
Yeah, same.
This one I'm like, it's very odd that I see it. Also, my oldest daughter does not have TikTok, but yet does the dances in the house. So,
she play Fortnite or something?
Media. Huh? No. What's that?
She play Fortnite or something?
So I don't know if she is a Visco girl. I don't know what the term is.
I have no idea.
I know she carries around a Hydro Flask a lot and wears Chucks and has scrunchies. So to me, she's just like the kids I went to school with in middle school already. So
gotcha.
It's just kind of like one of those.
All right, that's enough about your TikTok. I was gonna ask Jeremy.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask Jeremy. Just during the whole crisis and stuff, like, what kinds of things have you been doing to stay sane and stay entertained? And are you still currently, like, working right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously, a lot of craziness going on. I am fortunate to be able to work remotely.
Yeah.
Our company really took a proactive approach with this whole thing, to the point, we put a COVID response team together before I even realized it was a deal. And they were very great about sending anybody who could work from home to the house and saying, hey, first and foremost, safety and health, is what we're about. So I've been blessed to still have some projects that I'm working on. So yeah, I've been working from the house. As far as maintaining sanity, this whole thing has been a little strange. It first hit with my daughters because at the very beginning, I was early into the quarantine process. I said, "Hey, look, you're not going to your friend's house. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the news out of Italy, and it's very concerning. So we're just gonna, put you on lockdown." Well, their response was, well, what did we do wrong? Why are we being punished?
Yeah.
And operationally, that's the go-to punishment for our kids is,
right.
You're grounded. You now have to stay at the house.
Yeah. So it feels like they
so
have some
like
responsibility in it or something.
Absolutely. Like it felt to them like a punishment. That was the first kind of feedback that we had heard.
Right.
So anything that we can do to kind of make that feel less like a punishment and more like a family time or a creative time is what we're focusing on, trying to make sure that they have access to art supplies, keeping music lessons going.
It's in the front of the truck.
Onto those little pieces we'll see, and that's been absolutely crucial. The other part about this, Paul and I are kindred spirits with regard to being very outgoing, very extroverted. So this has been really hard. And he put something on Facebook the other day to that effect, which really resonated with me. That we thrive on connection, not just within our family, but within our social group and the bigger population as a whole, especially in the restaurant business, because you're connecting with anybody who walks in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And we've lost a lot of that. So any chance that I have to kind of claw some of that back is what I'm focusing on. So, yes, I am in sales, to keep our company fiscally healthy. I need to be able to sell things, but this time it's really not about sales. It's about reaching out to those folks that you're connected with, because all of my clients feel the same way. And that's kind of the great equalizer of this is everybody is, if they're doing the right things, everybody is kind of feeling the same way.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Reaching out to folks, just touching base, checking in with people, video chats, FaceTime. We have so many amazing tools right now to help us feel connected despite our physical separation. And that's really been the focus here is less about trying to drive revenue and more about just trying to stay connected and be a support and be a genuine advocate for these folks that are trying to figure their way through it just like we all are. And that's the thing that we've grabbed onto, and art has been a big piece of it, whether it's music or visual art or cooking, which I consider an art form as well. The more time that you can spend expressing yourself, getting those feelings out, and connecting with people in the world, the better off we're going to be, the healthier we're going to be through this process, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and Paul and I keep talking about like that's the reason we've moved this from like just one Wednesday, or not one Wednesday, but just one day a week on Wednesday to doing it every day, is because like we have to have this kind of thing going on. Like if I don't have something like this pretty early in the day, like I just don't feel productive. So
and talking about extroverts, in connection and things like that, we have some introverts that live in our house as well. And the thing there is now someone's always around. That's the other thing. Yep. It's the, hey, I just need to be nowhere near anybody.
Yeah.
Like, leave me alone.
Like, are they the ones going crazy right now?
Yeah. So it's kind of like we're all in the same boat right now, because it's, Ash and I talked about, we talked about it last night, and I was like, hey, is this putting a strain on home, or, like me doing this every day? Is it putting a strain? Like, let's talk about it. Let's be for real about it, because that's obviously the number one relationship, is what's going on there. And she was like, actually, it's making you not go crazy. So it's working really well. It just, it's cool if you keep doing it. If there's a problem, I'll tell you. and it's not not a knock on anything. I mean, obviously, I think we'd all three make the same choice if any of our spouses were like, "Hey, I need you to not do that," you know. But it's very much like. And then I heard a term yesterday, amnivert.
I was going to ask you about that because I saw the post too, and a couple people said ambivert.
Ambivert. My vocabulary is bad. Is that so? Is that? I haven't Googled it, so I'm not doing anything like that. By the way, my kid is beating a car on the floor right now, and I just got informed he is 8 months old. Is he 8 or 9 months old? He's 8 months old.
I'm gonna Google it, by the way. I'm gonna look.
Where it's a mixture of both. Dude, my kid is 6 months old till he's a year, and then he'll be a year till he's 2 years, and then he'll be 2 till he's 3. Like, I'm not making anybody do math. All right, so we got way too.
It just means balanced, like balanced extrovert and introvert. That makes sense.
Yeah. So like they're extroverts that have moments of needing complete alone solidarity. Is that the word? Yeah, solidarity. Yeah, and like I jumped on an Instagram live with one of, actually she's not my friend. I like her. I want that to be like we're
Ouch.
friendly, like, but we don't know each other, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just to let her talk to general public. But she's going to be on the show on Friday. She's lead singer of a band in town, but we legitimately got on and talked about. We got on my food truck Instagram live and just talked about making mashed potatoes and painting shoes. And I think in that moment, people need that. And it's kind of one of those things of, we had one person or 6 people watching and things like that. Like, it's in a social media world, we don't need to get caught up in who is looking and watching those things. It's more about, I hate to sound like selfishness right now, but more about the people that are on there and getting what they need and knowing that is their truth and putting it out there, and then that kind of coming to fruition. Just whatever residual you get out of coming to fruition.
Sure.
Sorry, my brain faster than my mouth did. So Jeremy has been cooking a lot on television. And when I say television, I mean Facebook. And I have taken the initiative. It's trolling in a positive way. I need this to be it is not. So I am rating people's food on a star rating from 1 to 5, and then giving what I see from a chef's standpoint as a description under it. My question to you, Jeremy, is how spot on was I with the soup? Is what I want to know.
With the white chicken chili,
yes.
You were very, very close. There was no chili oil in it, but there certainly, that was a beautiful layer of fat on there. A little flavor is how I like to refer to fat. I don't like calling it fat because it's got so many bad connotations. So it was a little flavor ring around the outside.
Flavor ring. I love that.
Yes, and it had picked up some of the coloring from the turmeric that my wife inserted into that recipe, antiviral, just to try to give us a little boost to get through this challenging health time. But yeah, man, you were really, really close. We're very fortunate. Both my wife and I love to cook. That's our second favorite couple activity to participate in, and we are really fortunate to enjoy that time together. So, full disclosure, those are not all my meals. That's a trade-off between her and myself. The white chicken chili was all her, but yeah, man, you were picking up against the bullseye frame.
Yeah, and then another couple of things of Jeremy's that I love when it comes to food is the smoked salt.
Yes.
And then, I don't even know.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest with you there. And then beef jerky. The man makes the best beef jerky.
Dude.
And I know it's weird to get excited about beef jerky.
No, it's not.
but it is delicious.
Oh, absolutely. Love some beef jerky. I'm a thrift store junkie as well. And that's how this all kind of started. Is I had always wanted an Excalibur dehydrator. It's a very, very commercial grade dehydrator.
Gotcha.
And I ran across one at a Goodwill up in Oak Ridge. It was on the shelf looking lonely for like $4. So I picked it up, and I'd never dehydrated anything in my life before. And I just kind of dove right into it. And man, I've had a great time making it. Shared it with friends, tried to make sure that we took some chances with the recipes. Made an Italian meatball flavored beef jerky, got into some of the spicy Asian flair, that kind of stuff. So yeah, love it, man. It's meat to go. Who doesn't like meat to go?
Yeah, really.
You don't have to keep it refrigerated, throw it in your backpack, pandemic scenario, you have meat will travel. You're good to go,
Yeah, and
also share it with random people. So
Yes. Yeah, real deal. When I go to trade shows, we go to these big industry trade shows, and I walk around with about 1.5 pounds of beef jerky on my person at all times. And when I meet all these random manufacturer reps, I always, I meet them and I'm like, hey, thanks for telling me about your product line. By the way, do you want some beef jerky? Do you like it sweet or spicy? And I throw jerky at them. So every time we go to these shows like once every 2 years, and every other year they're like, the beef jerky guy, what do you got?
I like to think that you physically throw it at them and it just like, and they pick it up off the ground and it's still delicious.
Right.
So I'm not trying to say anything about TikTok. However, you need a tagline on TikTok, and it needs to be, I carry around 1.5 pounds of beef jerky at all times. That is it right there. Like,
I mean,
just make it.
Doesn't matter. No one cares.
Make a shirt with it.
I love it. I love it.
I would wear that every day.
I would so buy that. I carry around 1.5 pounds of beef jerky at all times. Now, the bad thing is you were going to actually have to have beef jerky at that moment if you wear the shirt.
Yeah,
that's true.
Just constantly making it. Jeremy, since we are Facebook friends as of last night, I did go and look on your page, and I saw a bunch of those recipes and those finished dishes, and they look amazing. And just a question for both of you. And a little backstory. I want to get to the point with cooking where I know like this much water with this much flour is going to have this result. That kind of thing with ingredients. How are you guys with that kind of thing? And like, what are the things that work, and what are the things that you're like, I don't even touch, like baking or, I don't know. Because Paul, I feel like you put on this air of like you don't really know that much, but you have these delicious recipes. So I want to know what you do know.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
So I get what you're saying, Asher. I get that you want to know how much of this is just shifting on the fly, second nature, and how much of it is going line by line in a recipe. First, I'll cut it right in the half. All the baking stuff, I don't have any of that in here.
Okay,
gotcha. That's a science, right? So fools like me who just kind of throw whatever at the pot, that's the recipe for failure in baking. You have to follow the recipe. There's really not anything aside from just a very basic dough that I pull out and say, okay, this is going to make, a baked good that people will enjoy.
Yeah.
So that whole half of the food spectrum is now eliminated from innate knowledge. I'm a protein guy. I mean, I've taught myself to love vegetables over time. But I started real simple. And you just start with a protein, a protein family, and then you kind of grow out from there. And, for me, it's a lot about texture as well as taste, and just kind of learning how those muscles react to heat. And it becomes less about, the ingredients and more about trying to stay true to the meat, the protein itself,
Yeah.
What is that specific cut of meat that you love to cook that you see on sale and always buy it because no one knows how to cook it?
Yes. So my favorite cut, and I've been trying to be an advocate for this particular cut with all my friends because at heart I'm a very frugal person. Hence the thrift store, stuff like that, and I love finding hidden treasures and hidden value in life. That's kind of one of my core motivators. So I will tell everybody, I will preach it from the mountaintops. Chuck eye Chuck eye steaks. And I know a lot of people are out there going, what is he talking about?
I love it.
There's the chuck. There's like an eye. We cook an eyes and then a steak we don't understand. So most people, when they consume the chuck area of the cow, which has a lot of fat, has a lot of flavor.
Yeah.
Right, it has a lot of flavor. Usually, it's considered a lesser than cut. It's used for pot roast. It's ground up for fatty burgers, that kind of stuff. Well, the ribeye tends to be the star of the show when it comes to flavorful cuts of steak. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that the chuck and the ribeye are immediately next to each other on the cow. So there is one piece of meat on each side of that cow that splits the difference perfectly between the chuck and the ribeye, right? And that is the chuck eye. So it has all the flavor of chuck. It has all the texture of ribeye where you don't have to cook it to death to break down the collagen. And there's only 2 per cow. So when you go to the grocery store and you see 2 perfect chuck eye steaks in this little package, and they're usually like $7-8 a pound versus the ribeye, which would probably be more like 13 to 15.
Yeah.
Depending on what. You grab those, you season them. You don't get afraid of seasoning them. You put plenty of salt and pepper on them. Let them come up to temperature, and you cook them just like you would a ribeye steak. And your wife, if she's not into flavor, she'll be like, "There's too much fat on this," but you just ignore her because eventually she's going to give you part of her steak to eat too. So you just say thank you. I'll pick a different cut next time, and then you buy the chuck eye again.
Yeah. So I think I found the least expensive chuck eye I found is about $3.99 a pound.
Wow.
And it was in the sale meat section, which all that says to me is that it's dry aged longer. I don't look at that. So I am not afraid to call fat, by the way. So fat to me does a lot more than flavor, if you will. It actually doesn't add flavor. It carries flavor, but we won't get into that long conversation
tomorrow.
We can if you want to, but it also does another very important thing when people are afraid of it. And we're going to use a term here because you used mouthfeel. It's called lubrication. Without fat, you're swallowing something dry, and you need to have lubrication to be able to swallow something.
Right.
So it needs to go down smooth. All right. So I am very humble when it comes to the fact of I know how to throw things together. I'm good. I'm really good at it. But it all comes back to a book from about 1990,
yes,
1992.
This is what I want to know. What's the secret?
And it's called Culinary Artistry is the name of the book. Okay.
Can't buy it from Amazon right now, but I'm looking it up.
I have 6 copies of it. Don't worry.
Okay, I'll get it from you.
Actually, I don't. I got rid of all of them. I sold them a case. So
killing me.
So the book is about, let's say, 1.5 inch thick, normal standard size book.
Yeah.
And I'd say about 1/8 of it, 1/6 of it, a very small portion of it is interviews with chefs, their first menus versus their current menus, what they would take to a deserted island, just
That's
basic.
cool.
random questions of, at the time, top name chefs. You know, we're talking Waters, we're talking let's see, I don't think Lagasse was in there yet. Bourdain, Daniel Boulud, like your big time Wolfgang, like your celebrities before the celebrity chef push of the 93, 94. Okay. When Food Network got big and everything else. So, but the rest of the book is not a recipe book, but a pairing book. Okay. So let's say you've got a piece of salmon and you go to where it says salmon and then it lists everything that pairs with salmon. And in bold, it has the French pairings with it. Well, I automatically know that lemon goes with that. All right, cool. Boom, lemon. And I go to lemons and I see that asparagus goes with salmon as well as goes with lemons as well. And then you kind of construct your own dish that way. And once you do it so many times, I mean, there are things that I'll write menus and I just know in theory they work. I just already know, like, hey, this is going to work. Like our Spam sandwich. And I know that sounds crazy, but I knew Spam and I knew gochujang would go together and I knew wasabi would go with it, especially if we katsu fried it. I knew it would go great with cabbage. Tomatoes would pair well, especially if seasoned. And then, you know, the onions and then the katsu sauce and everything. And I knew it would go together and I knew it would be great before I even tasted the dish. Now, you got to taste it to tweak it, but I knew the base of it, right? You know, and then you get into little steps that chefs do or advanced cooks or anything like that. Like when you do burgers, like when you're putting the lettuce and tomato on, season the tomato, put a little salt on there. Don't be afraid of it. It's going to do a couple of things. It's going to pull the moisture out of the tomato, right? So it's going to make it a little easier to eat, but at the same time, it's going to add a saltiness to it, which heightens flavor, doesn't add flavor. We can get into that conversation as well. But it's all those little tricks that, you know, I want to say come naturally, but it came with a lot of failing. It really is what it did. It came with a lot of trial. It came with a lot of chefs screaming at me. It came with a lot of, you know, I mean, I've had a pan thrown at me before. I'm not afraid to admit that. But I've also had chefs that very much were, if you're not going to serve it, to that person, to your person, don't serve it at all. And you know, especially I'll say the difference between home cooks and restaurant cooks or restaurant chefs or restaurant professionals is the home person will say, if I wouldn't eat it myself, I wouldn't serve it. Well, that's a bunch of garbage because I will eat pizza left on the counter for 2 days. Okay.
No problem.
So let's take that, throw it away. What your professional is going to say is, if I wouldn't serve it, if I wouldn't give it to the person that means the most to me, and everybody means the most to somebody. So if I wouldn't serve it to Ashley, I'm not going to put it out of the window. And that is my baseline because she gets the best. Like, I'm not trying to, like, she can come to anything that we have and be like, I want X, Y, Z. And if I've got the ingredients, I'm going to make it. The other thing that I'm about to post is that a menu is a menu and not an ingredients list. Let's start off with that. Okay. So and I don't have a problem if somebody doesn't like onions and taking that out. Like, I get all those things, right? But don't make your own dish at a restaurant. We've worked really, really, really hard testing, retesting, having people taste food. There's a lot that goes into a menu that you don't see. Every menu you look at is probably 100 to 150 hours worth of work between concept and testing and tasting and everything else. Those things don't just come out of nowhere.
Right.
It's usually 4 to 8 weeks of a menu. Like, how does it come together? And even when you talk about Mellow Mushroom, they have some crazy pizzas, but they're good. Like the one with the jerk chicken and the pineapple and the onions and the banana peppers and all that, pesto. And like, how did you come up with that? Well, you came up with it because you know what flavors go together. So that's where professional chefs have the ability to walk into a pantry and be like, okay, that goes with that, with that, with that, with that, with that, because it's just stored knowledge.
Right.
Which we're more than willing to share. I believe that we give everything away
Yeah.
because you're not going to do it anyways. Most
Right.
people aren't. I don't mean you got. I mean, most people aren't going to take the time. They're going to
Doing
look at what's on the box of the Barilla pot package and buy the ingredients while they're in the store, and then they end up with excess things at home, and then now they're throwing away food because they just don't know how to use it. Um, I mean, you could give it, but that's also, and I'm hard on culinary schools because I don't think they're necessary, right? But I don't think the $100,000 you spend on a culinary degree is necessary.
Gotcha.
I think going to a community college where you're only going to spend 5 is the same thing you're going to get. But man, 80% of culinary school is called a basket test. And it's where you're given a blind basket of ingredients and come up with some food. And I'm going to be honest with you, 80% of the time, it sucks. Like, it is the worst thing ever. But, we also make mistakes, and I think that's every profession. I don't think that's just, I think even in music, you don't know if it's going to work until you try it.
Absolutely.
And you can do something and be like, yo, that sounds horrible, right? In painting, you paint something, you can be, oh, that sounds horrible. Now, somebody will buy it when you're dead for $5 million, but, like, there's some paints. There's a guy that painted an entire canvas red and sold it for like $500,000. I'm like, what? No. They were like, you don't see the layers? And I'm like, I see red is what I see. Right. But somebody's going to appreciate whatever you do. Like plum and caramelized onion chutney. I'll go back to it to the day I die. It was the worst thing I've ever made in my entire life. And it was horrible. Even worse than liquid cinnamon rolls. So going to his baking side of it, I appreciate pastry people.
Yeah.
And notice the word I used.
Appreciate. You don't like them. You respect
no,
them.
I do. However, following an ingredient line by line, to me, does not constitute being a chef. There is no. I think, listen, I know pastry chefs, and now pastry chefs that come up with ingredients and make their own recipes, I 100% will call them a chef. Otherwise, you're a baker. And that's just me, and that's just who I am, and that's just what it is. Hey, buddy. And I'm joking.
Well, I will say
chefs.
the first bread that I made, that was line by line, like following all these steps and ingredients, and that one turned out amazing. And then I was like, I'll go rogue and I'll try my own thing. And that turned out to be somewhere between a biscuit and just something awful. And the only redeeming factor was frying it in some butter and putting American cheese on it.
Oh, put American cheese on it. Did you say that just to get at me?
No, I said that because that's the reality of what I did with it, and it was delicious. Because American cheese is real cheese. Now I'm trying to get at you.
My version of baking bread is to pull the frozen dough loaf out of the freezer and put it in the loaf pan. Okay. But it makes great bread. So, but I can respect people that have the ability and the patience to bake.
It's a long time.
Because baking is patience.
Yeah.
Where the other side of it is constant activity.
Right.
And it also fills into my adult ADD because you have 100 things going on that you have to get all done at once.
Yeah.
And, going to marriage counseling. I know it's a weird segue there.
I like it though.
But my marriage counselor said on our test that I was the only person that she had ever seen that was an extreme planner and thrived in chaos at the same time. And Ashley goes, yep, sounds about right. Because that is what I believe one of the basis of just the professional cook. I'm not even going chef here. Professional cook, you have to be extremely planned and extremely organized and willing for when it hits the fan for you to be able to go. But everything has to be in that spot or mise en place for you to be able to do it. We got a point knocked off on our health inspection because our health inspector didn't like the way I organized the kitchen. And I was like, you saw me put out a 12 top in 6 minutes, like solo. Like, what do you mean not organized? So, but to run into what Jeremy does, this is why we buy coolers. And this is why we refocus on what we can do and, why we go, all right, $2,500 cooler is worth the money, because we're going to be, it's not even about getting it back. It's about being better at that moment. So how is the family, Jeremy? How are they handling all this?
The family's doing well. Right at the very beginning of it, my wife, who works at a local donut shop, she came down with a low-grade fever, and everybody has their baseline anxiety through this whole process just kicking up. And our adaptation mode has turned from, a monthly to yearly horizon to almost an hourly horizon. So it's already a stressful time. And man, she fortunately has recovered completely. But a low-grade fever right now is panic-inducing.
Yeah, really.
It is terrifying. So I was really happy to see her come through that. Kids are doing really well. My oldest has been just painting her heart out. She's got canvases. She ran out of canvases, and a neighbor was kind enough to donate us a bunch of her dad's old mono vinyl. And so she's been painting these vinyls. She's really just been great about staying engaged, about producing something. Because I think in this time, just like, Paul was saying about chefs needing to have a sense of preparedness and a sense of kind of control over their environment. I feel like that is kind of core to all of us right now. And we've all kind of lost that to a degree.
Yeah.
Is things that you can control, things that you can tangibly see, that you are producing, that you are moving forward with and developing. Those are the kind of things that the kids have. We've kind of tried to support them in their ability to do that.
Right.
But both the girls are doing really well. Thank you for asking about them. And Adrian is feeling well. She's actually talking about getting back to work this week.
Nice.
So that's very fortunate. And yeah, that's the plan is just trying to keep them doing things that they enjoy, that enrich them, and that give them a sense of purpose and a sense of production. Because this can't be a pause to that. And expect it to be healthy and expect these folks to come out of it the other side.
Yeah.
How's your clan going, Paul?
Well, one of them's right here. He wanted to be involved, I guess.
Well, he wants that beard, it looks like.
So we play a game where he hits my face, and I like. So hold on, let me see if I can get him. That's the game. That's all the game is. And it's great because no one else plays it with him except me. So he just basically grabs their face, and it's awesome. He also has the largest mouth of any baby I've ever seen, and eats like he takes like full like man-sized bites of food, and he's just 8 months old. I realized that he was 8 months old today. But yeah, he's that's good. The clan is Ashley takes pictures, and so she took she did pictures of lemon bars. She's the baker of the house. So, and she does amazingly well. Hold on, let me send him down real quick.
I was gonna ask, did he get the big mouth from you? Hey yo.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. It's time for morning nap, most likely.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, he got the big mouth from me. No, but she took a big piece of paper talking about art, and it was her backdrop. And then we just kind of put push pins in the wall, and we were like, here's some crayons, kids, go to town. And they've kind of made like a giant mural on the wall. It's pretty cool. And we didn't, Knox County hasn't given out any like what you're doing for school, but we kind of put together a schedule. Just to give everybody some structure. Like yesterday we did a sign language thing, like teaching them some sign language, and then everybody did some math. But in the math, like we taught the oldest one how to write a check and how to do a check register. Like, so Some common cores getting thrown out the window right now. I need everybody to understand that. But like we're working on. I'm like, man, how do I do fractions from decimals again? like, so. But no, I mean, most of it is great. I need that to be very. I think all three of us believe that, and since we all mobily, that's great. And it's really good and made it more about family, regardless of what your family looks like. It's made it look like family.
Yeah.
We've got a blended, we've got married kids at home all the time, and we've got married, no kids, and it's still all family. I mean, except for the dogs, which I do like. As much as I joke about asking how the dogs are every day, I really am genuinely interested how his dogs are. But it's just it's good. Everything has its good and its bad.
Yeah.
We went on a drive the other day, and I think that's important to get out.
I need to do that. I need to do that with the dogs because we've walked around the neighborhood like twice a day for about an hour each time. But starting to go.
Do they like the car?
Crazy.
Do they like stick their heads out and like
the girl wants to be in my lap and the guy likes to stick his head out? So yeah, they enjoy it.
Is the girl Nelly and the guy Maverick?
That's a good guesses there. Yeah. Nailed it.
I can't remember people's names, but I can remember actors'
just those two dogs.
Names.
You remember Maverick because of Tom Cruise, I know, but
and then Nelly because of
yeah,
Southern rap.
I know, right? I know I kind of cut you off, but I actually have to go to do another podcasty thing. It won't be live or anything, but it is Knox on Tap if you all want to hear about beer stuff in Knoxville. So I'll be doing that here in just a few minutes. But yeah, Jeremy, any closing thoughts or words of wisdom to leave us with?
Well, basically, the number one job for everybody right now, I think, is just staying safe and staying healthy, and keeping in mind that this is not forever.
Yeah.
It's a huge disruption. Everybody's just trying to come to terms with a very changing and, scary environment. But just keep in mind, this is not forever. No one is expecting this to be the way that we live for the rest of our lives. So try to maintain your sanity, hold on to your passions, hold on to your loved ones, reach out and connect and check on your friends and check on your acquaintances. I mean, everybody needs to be touching base with at least a dozen folks every day just to let them know that they're still there. And when you go out in public, my recommendation is if you have to go out, make sure you wear some form of covering on your face. The number one way that this virus is transmitted is touching from hands to face. So anything that can keep you present in mind when you're going out to avoid that hand to face contact is going to be a great benefit to keeping you and your family and your friends healthy.
For sure. All right. Well, on that note, we will go ahead and sign it off here. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a blast.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Thanks
for inviting me. Good to see you guys.
Right.
Thanks so much.
Good seeing you too.